If you enjoy stepping into the past, remember to like and subscribe. Now, tell me who should travel next and in what year. We find ourselves in Rome, Italy, just as the sun rises on a spring morning in the year 100 CE, in the heart of a city bustling like a living creature. The sharp scent of crushed olive oil mingles with the dust on heated marble steps, a scent both strange and jarring. You feel gritty sand in your mouth, and the air hums with distant clatterwagon wheels pounding stone, merchants shouting across the forum. Something intangible weighs on your senses. A thick blend of sweat, smoke, and the faint decay of discarded fruit. He blinks against the harsh light, reflecting off white marble columns carved with gods and emperors long dead. His name is Marcus, age 38, a man from a far future now stuck in this strange past. Before time's cruel shift, he was a call center worker, his days spent delivering calm through a telephone line to frustrated voices. Now, adapting feels like decoding an impossible message without a headset, standing amid a sea of togas and sandals. His fingers itch at the absence of familiar tools, no screens, no headset, no instant connection. But he remembers his skills: quick processing of information, patience with irritated voices, mapping out conversations like a flow chart. His mind works like a relay station, clear, logical, patient amid chaos. Today, the Roman streets throw challenges new and sharp. Word travels differently here. A message must be sent by human feet, not instant signals. Yet Marcus notices the similarity. Wherever there are voices, questions, orders, there is a need for clarity and speed. He begins offering his services as a messenger, but not just any runner. He creates a system of notes on thin papyrus, marks for priority, routes optimized for speed. His knowledge of customer flow in a call center becomes a map of human movement. The senators, vaguely intrigued by this curious Roman who handles their errands with unusual precision, start relying on him. Their impatience for news orders from the battlefield, decisions made in marble halls, mirrors the frantic calls he managed back home. Unlike others who struggle with the noise and chaos of the market, Marcus treats Rome's disorder like a problem to be engineered, not an obstacle to shriek at. Sounds are relentless here: the crow of cocks at dawn, the clang of blacksmiths near the Via Sacra, the murmurs of crowds gathering to hear the latest announcement from the rostra. Marcus tunes his ears, tuning out distractions the way he once muted background noise. His gaze catches the flicker of worry in a senator's eyes, the repeated scratching of a clerk's stylus. He understands pressure, even if the context swirls unfamiliar patterns. The city is restless. Whispers of military campaigns beyond the Alps ripple through forums and baths. The empire's heartbeat pulses unevenly under Rome's splendor. Epidemics sweep pockets of the populace, and Marcus notes how news of a distant outbreak spreads slower than any text message ever could. His mind reels. How much safer a world where instant calls could summon help, trace contacts, and ease panic. At night, tossing on a rough wool cloak, he rests beneath the stars seen through an open window onto cold stone. The weight of the day presses in how futile it feels not to call in reinforcements with a click, not to keep a digital ledger of accounts, yet a faint pride stirs. Here, he is becoming crucial in a system ancient and fragile, where information moves through bodies and breath, not wires and waves. He wonders about time, about how each century carries its own tempo of survival. Rome's empire may seem eternal, but its workers and messengers like him move through delicate webs of chance and effort. His body aches from travel and unfamiliar food, but his mind sharpens as hours pass. Adaptation is a slow forge, shaping him, meshing future's logic with past's grit. He tastes the bitterness of stale bread, coarse and dry against his tongue, a harsh contrast to the soft comfort of modern meals he once took for granted. This is Marcus's second week in Rome, and the initial days that clouded his mind starts to give way to a mounting awareness of hardship. His body protests in new ways, aching joints, blistered feet rubbed raw by sandals that offer no cushion, a throat scratched raw from dust and dry air. The ease of sitting in a climate-controlled office, speaking calmly into a headset, feels as distant as a different world altogether. Yet it is here, amid the noise of carts loaded with produce and the cries of street vendors, that Marcus begins to understand the daily grind behind the grandeur of the empire. The senators who once seemed distant pillars now look like frail men, pressed by the weight of constant decisions. Their desires for urgent news, whispered reassurances, and swift errands echo the calls he once managed, endless demands slicing through patience like sharp blades. His mind, still sharp with habits honed by years in a call center, turns to strategy. He learns to balance stamina with efficiency, devising routes that spare time and energy. He notices the rhythm of the city's work hours and markets, recognizing patterns in the chaos. When the guards take their breaks, when the scribes hurry to finish reports before sunset, the system of information, primitive but vital, reminds him of call logs and priority queues. There is an uneasy alliance forming between Marcus and the senators. His logical approach appeals to them. They call him a messenger, a runner. But his modern need to organize information like a puzzle intrigues. He begins experimenting with small innovations, notes tagged with simple marks to indicate urgency, a method for passing messages with minimal words, but maximum clarity. He recalls how, back home, data and empathy combined to pacify irate clients. Here, he adapts those lessons to calm jittery nobles and frantic clerks without uttering a single word. But the city's hardship gnaws at him. The bitter bread offered at taverns is a far cry from the meals he knew, grinding against his teeth and leaving a coarse film in his mouth. Water comes from fountains that taste strangely metallic, and he spies shadows of illness sweat-soaked bodies coughing in crowded alleys, whispers of recurring plagues that haunt such dense populations. The thought of distant legion battles against Germanic tribes creeps into his awareness, a grim reminder of Rome's fragile balance between power and exhaustion. Evenings bring no respite as the sun dips behind temple roofs. The air cools, but the sweat remains, drying into salt streaks that itch his skin. Rest becomes a luxury when his mind churns with roots, messages, and figures etched painfully into memory. At night, he craves the sterile quiet of his old office, the hum of machines, the predictable glow of screens. Yet, there is a stubborn thread weaving through his days, a sense that even here, in the grit and grind of ancient hardship, his skills carry unexpected value. With every weary step, Marcus learns that survival is more than enduring heat or hunger. It is also the ability to connect, to adapt, to become indispensable in strange new rhythms. As the week closes, he feels the slow tightening of fatigue settle beneath his ribs, thick and real. His modern mind pushes forward, but his body remembers the sting of sweat, the bite of simple bread, the sharp edges of a world unsoftened by centuries of invention. Somewhere between the faint hope of utility and the raw ache of existence, Marcus understands. Living here will demand more than skill. Urine seeping from crowded corners, the raucous shouting of vendors, and the clang of bronze armor create a cacophony that assaults the senses from all sides. He breathes it all in, lips dry, heart pounding, pulse sinking with the restless beat of Rome itself. This is the world Marcus now moves in unrelenting, savage in pace, louder and more chaotic than any call center headset ever was. The roar of the city pierces his thoughts, the crashes and shouts a constant tide against his mental shore. Every step down the stone-paved street is jostled by the press of bodies surging past women in flowing stolas, soldiers with rusty gladii, children darting between legs. The air tastes thick with the mingling of roasted chestnuts and burning pitch carried from a nearby forge. Marcus feels himself teetering on the edge of overwhelm, a sensation alien from days once spent calmly logging calls and expertly managing voices trapped by static and frustration. Here, the spoken word bursts out raw and immediate. Yet, despite the sensory deluge, his mind clings to a core of clarity, the skill to compartmentalize, to prioritize, to track conversations amid noise. It's what kept him steady amid tidal waves of customer demands. That skill now transforms into decoding the city's chaos. As a messenger to senators, he is both participant and observer. His feet pound routes through cramped forums, past impressive basilicas and gated domus. He notices how the clamor swells around political gatherings, where whispers of upcoming campaigns and imperial decrees trigger ripples of tension. His mental flowcharts map these currents, allowing him to anticipate the needs of powerful men, accustomed to instant updates that time does not supply. Rome does not pause for breath. Market stalls erupt in heated debates. Slaves rush cargo to docks, and stone carvers pound monuments commemorating triumphs that already feel distant. This relentless noise strains Marcus's nerves in ways his previous profession never did. He finds pockets of silence only in quiet courtyards where water trickles through mosaics. Moments so brief they feel almost sacred. His modern habits surface unbidden. He notices that the senators often employ runners inefficiently, sending multiple couriers relaying the same message, a redundancy that would be flagged as waste in any modern workflow. He experiments with new methods, creating coded signs to speed deliveries and reduce confusion, trying to fold centuries of communication theory into this ancient network. Yet the complexity overwhelms him more than once. The roar of the chariots, the press of bodies, the stinging sun that burns his skin, each sensation reminds him that no headset or screen buffers this reality. His patience is tested not by disembodied voices, but by unending human turmoil moving through tight alleys and monumental halls. As evening falls, the noise fades to a dull murmur, and the smells clear into night's coolness. His fatigue coils deep, a throbbing echo of a week lived on the edge between clarity and chaos. He wonders how long the mind can hold steady in such a world where every sound demands response. Every glance matters. The city's roar is vast, alive, and indifferent, swallowing its inhabitants whole. In this clamorous crucible, Marcus encounters something new about himself, a fragile balance between overwhelm and focus. A reminder that survival is less about reigning over noise and more about finding the quiet within. The lesson is etched as surely as the wear on his soles. In a place where every shout competes to be heard, the real skill is choosing what to listen to. The ignorance to hover over keyboards and smooth glass screens now bear the grime of the city's dust, mixed with sweat, and the faint remnants of the parchment he carries. That residue clings stubbornly under his nails, in the cracks of his palms, a constant reminder This roam demands not just mental endurance, but physical roughness, a tactile immersion far from his former world. Marcus feels it everywhere in this fourth week, the shock of primitive touch. The cold weight of lead tokens used to mark messages, the gritty pages of papyrus sticky, with ink and finger oils, the sharp edges of carved wood on the senator's tablets. Each contact pulls him deeper into a realm where information flows not through wires or waves, but through the grasp of hand, the press of finger to palm, the awkward passing of fragile scrolls. His years in a modern call center offered comfort in distance. Voices flowed invisibly through headsets. Touch was limited to devices designed for smooth, deliberate taps. Here, every interaction requires proximity, an unfiltered collision with the world's raw textures. The wool tunics soak moisture and cling. The sandals cut into his heels, exposing calluses new and painful. He learns to shift weight and footing, to avoid blisters that would slow his runs for senators who crave their swift updates as desperately as imperial governors on distant frontiers. This primitive intimacy extends beyond objects to bodies. Hands seize his with brusque urgency as messages change hands. Forearms brush against sweat-soaked skin. The jostle in crowded halls offers no barrier, no personal space. His modern assumptions about hygiene and comfort falter here, unsettling but essential to abandon. The stench of unwashed crowds mingles with the scent of herbs and baking bread, a pungent blend that embeds itself in his clothes and hair. Marcus's practical mind begins to craft coping strategies. He adapts his messenger routes to avoid the thickest crowds during midday heat. Figuring the best path isn't just the shortest, but the most manageable under his growing fatigue. He experiments with fabric folding techniques to protect fragile scrolls, borrowing from the office's habits of filing and storing documents. A small transplant of office order into ancient chaos. Interactions grow more than physical. They become tools of influence. His unyielding patience, sharpened by countless hours diffusing frustrated callers, now translates into steady hands passing messages calmly when others flinch or rise in haste. Senators notice this steadiness. Marcus's unshaken focus becomes a quiet commodity, a signal he values as much as any ledger or letter. Amid the grime and scratchy wool, he glimpses how different eras demand different kinds of strength. Where once his work required only voice and wit, now endurance and tactile resilience shape his survival. The experience presses against his modern skin, revealing vulnerabilities, but also a stubborn core of adaptability. As night descends on the city, bringing cooler air and a fading clatter of voices, Marcus sinks onto a worn stone bench. His hands tremble slightly, raw from constant strain. The weight of the week presses upon him, a mixture of exhaustion and cautious achievement. He recognizes that in this place and time, survival is woven through the physical world as tightly as through social webs and whispered news. Touched by grime, bound by wool, and steeled by new trials, Marcus feels the slow, grinding transformation begin. The self built for digital ease is reshaping itself, becoming a creature of rough textures and relentless tactile truth, ready or not to face whatever this ancient city throws next. Urban colonnades of the Forum, where marble columns rise like silent sentinels into the hazy afternoon light. Beneath those grand stones, the murmur of voices weaves with the distant clatter of wooden wheels over cobbles, the scent of roasted meats from a nearby brazier, and the faint, persistent dust that coats everything like a thin, choking veil. Marcus feels it pressing against his skin and lungs as he stands there, watching the relentless passage of hours. This is the heart of Rome, and here time stretches in a way he's unaccustomed to. No digital clocks, no calendar alerts. The moments fold slowly one into another, measured by shadows creeping across sun-baked marble, by the shifting bustle of senators and citizens. Marcus, once a call center worker, used to splitting seconds and threading conversations into seamless flow, now wrestles with the relentless, often indifferent flow of time itself. The Forum seems both eternal and fleeting. The same stone steps that Julius Caesar once ascended still bear the imprint of thousands of feet. Yet the senators who call for news today show the same impatience he once managed in customers' voices. It is here that Marcus realizes how much his modern assumptions about time and communication shape his survival. The desire for instant updates, the rush to be on top of every detail, does not disappear in this ancient world. It mutates, becoming a physical urgency, carried on runners dashing across the city rather than transmitted through wires. His mind, trained for multitasking and prioritizing voices, now applies the same logic to the human networks threading through Rome's political core. He notices how messages cluster and bottleneck, not unlike a network jammed by too many calls. And he devises better routes, faster handoffs, and coded markings to signal urgency, a medieval form of triage that echoes his past life's procedures. But time here wears differently, a patient, grinding force unsoftened by technology. Days bleed into nights with a heavy, palpable weight. Marcus's senses sharpen against it, the lengthening shadow of a statue marking the afternoon, the diminishing chatter as marketplaces close, the slow cooling of baked stone. He senses time as physical pressure, something to be respected and anticipated rather than conquered. The political intrigues, the distant rumblings of unrest along the empire's northern borders, and the ever-present risk of outbreaks of illness hang like unseen chains on Rome's pulse. Marcus watches the senators' faces tighten as updates from legions take hours. Even days, traveling on foot, or horse news lagging behind events, by spans impossible to compress with modern impatience. In the quieter moments beside fountains and under olive trees, he sits and lets the weariness creep in, muscles unclenching slowly from days packed with errands and negotiations. His modern skills give him leverage, but they also expose him to frustration. Here, he can't click a button to fix delays or replay conversations instantly. Time demands patience in a way his old world never did. As the week winds down, Marcus feels a deepening humility. The ancient rhythm of Rome is not just a backdrop, but a force shaping every act. His body aches from travel, his mind churns with strategy, yet he recognizes that adaptation includes surrender-granting time its relentless grip, negotiating with it rather than fighting. In the shifting light of evening, the forum's stones cool, and the city exhales. Marcus, burdened and alert, senses the fragile nature of his existence. Here, a single thread in a vast tapestry caught in the unyielding weave of time itself. Dimly lit chamber. The murmurs around him are low and urgent words exchanged in hushed tones. Seals pressed into soft clay. Hands sliding across parchment, sealed with wax. Marcus breathes it all in. The smell of burning tallow and damp earth sinking into his skin as the night closes in around Rome's shadowed corners. This is the world where deals are whispered, where influence is brokered not through screens or voicemails, but through presence, timing, and the subtle play of trust and caution. After 6 weeks, Marcus begins to understand that survival here requires more than speed, and logicate demands a new kind of diplomacy, a reading of silence as skillful as any spoken message. His background in call center work, trained to navigate frustration, decode intention, and guide conversations toward resolution, serves him in unexpected ways. When senators and their aides murmur urgent questions, when messages change hands in these flickering twilight hours, Marcus listens beyond the words. He notes the ebb and flow of power in every pause, every glance, learning that sometimes the most critical updates travel not on papyrus, but in the hesitant tightening of a cupped hand or the brief flash of a warning eye. He's no longer just a runner of messages, but a participant in a delicate dance. His carefully developed system of coded note symbols to prioritize urgency, marks denoting secrecy earns him wary trust. Senators begin to ask for him by name. Their impatience sharpens, but so does their reliance. Marcus shapes his routes not just for speed, but but for discretion, knowing the gossip and the news he carries could shift allegiances or spark conflagrations. Yet the ancient rhythms still challenge him. Supplies move unpredictably. Laws twist with the shifting politics of the Curia, and the ever-present shadow of the northern frontiers upheavals tightens the air. Reports of battles far beyond the Alps seep slowly into the city, carried by mounted messengers whose horses' hooves drum out delays measured not in seconds, but on days. The senator's reliance on Marcus intensifies, as if the fragile link between decision and information depends on his every breath. Amid the smoke and stone, Marcus sharpens his senses to the textures of contact, once foreign to his modern life. The weight of a sealed message pressed into his hand, the slight tremor in a whispered briefing, the urgency cloaked in perfumed robes and guarded eyes. His modern assumptions about communication both limit and liberate him. The lack of technology frustrates, but he adapts, sprouting strategies born from flows of voice calls and data triage. At day's end, after hours spent weaving through shadowed chambers and torchlit corridors, his body and mind ache in tandem. The city's pulse rhythmically presses against his bones, relentless yet strangely familiar. He senses that the delicate survival around whispered deals is a tide he must ride, carefully balancing speed with secrecy, logic with intuition. As he settles beneath a ragged awning, the last embers of torches guttering into dusk, Marcus contemplates the strange alchemy shaping him here. The tools of his trade have shifted from wires and headsets to shadow, and silence not less vital, but profoundly different. Through whispered deals and flickering flames, he begins to grasp survival's fragile edge, that in a world without pause, the quiet moments between words carry the deepest weight. Uneven, as it kicks up with every hurried step through the press of buyers, sellers, and slaves. His mouth clings to dryness, not just from the dust, but from the unfamiliar urgency of speaking plainly, quickly, and with purpose among a sea of strangers. This week, Marcus confronts a new challenge, learning to speak the language of survival here in Rome's marketplace, a place bursting with vitality and tension. It is a place where words are weapons and currency, negotiated heavily alongside olives, wine, and freshly baked bread. As a man accustomed to calm voices, channeled through headset speakers and scripts, Marcus now finds his voice rough and awkward in the sharp Latin spilling from merchants' mouths. His modern habits of careful phrasing and measured tone wobble under the pressure to respond instantly, to grasp meaning amid the clipped questions and fast exchanges around him. The marketplace is a living board where fortunes shift with whispered bargains and haggles that stretch into heavy breaths and quickened heartbeats. His role has evolved. No longer only a messenger rushing between stately villas and marble halls, Marcus now serves as a go-between for senators craving instant updates, and the vendors and runners who embody Rome's underground flow of information and goods. He develops a keen sense for reading moods behind gestures and glances, applying his call center skill of gauging frustration and intent. But here, the stakes are higher and the feedback immediate. He experiments with adopting local rhythms, hurrying to interrupt when urgency flashes in an eye, stepping back respectfully when caution holds the floor. He notes the particular weight of certain words, the way some stallholders mark out messages with hushed emphasis or repeated phrases, and integrates this into his own growing vocabulary. His efforts slowly turn heads. A nod from a tobacco merchant, the rare offering of water from a fruit seller's jug. Small tokens of connection that feed his determination. Amid this sensory overload, sweat mingling with the sweet aroma of honey dust blurring faces. The clang of iron tools from a nearby workshop. Marcus tests the boundaries of what he thought communication could be. The constant noise and tactile proximity clash with his memories of sterile call centers, where distance, both physical and emotional, offered buffer. Now, communication demands presence, volume, and negotiation beyond polite listening. He also confronts the limitations of his modern mindset. Instant gratification, the assumption that messages fetch immediate answers, falters here where misinformation clings and news trickles slowly, concealed in forms disguised as gossip or simple trade exchanges. His impatience battles against ancient rhythms, teaching him humility and new forms of patience. By the week's end, dust settles into his clothes and skin, his vocal cords raw from endless speaking. Yet, beneath the weariness, a subtle shift occurs. The dry mouth softens with newly found fluency, and in the marketplace's chaotic surge, Marcus senses the first real pulse of Rome's life beating through him. Survival is becoming less about running messages faster and more about learning how to listen, how to serve, and how to speak in a language not just of words, but of trust and timing, woven through the endless, dusty hum of the city. In the cramped kitchen courtyard, where steam rises thick and food aromas curl through humid air. The smell of roasting meat mixes with ash and fresh herbs, sharp and persistent beneath the afternoon sun. Marcus feels the rough grain of a wooden bench beneath his fingertips, his body stiff from the long hours spent weaving messages through the city, but also warmer now with something less familiar connection. This week marks a shift. Assignment after assignment has pushed him over Rome's endless streets and corridors. But now, amid scraped voices and clattering cookware, He senses early friendships beginning to form in this alien world. The messengers, slaves, and servants he once regarded as mere backdrops reveal themselves through shared toil and fleeting moments. The brush of a hand steadying a fragile scroll, a nudged jar of olives passed without expectation, a tired smile caught in the corner of a busy market, his call center instincts, the patience refined by handling frustrated callers, the ability to read when voices mask irritation or confusion become currency in these exchanges. He learns to listen as much with his eyes as ears, trying to decipher moods in a language both physical and spoken. He sees how the flow of information depends just as much on trust and timing as on speed or correctness. In this ancient city humming with politics and rumor, that trust is fragile but vital. Roman life's physicality surprises him daily. The scrape of leather against stone, the weight of basket-laden shoulders, the heat radiating from clay ovens. All these are constant companions amid the shifting networks he navigates. He begins sharing small rituals, helping carry water jars, cleaning scraps from tables, easing a scroll back into a caretaker's pack. The tactile nature of these bonds contrasts with the virtual distance of his old world, where connections were voices through cables and attachment ephemeral. News from the empire's far frontiers arrives in staggering delays, carried on the backs of messengers riding hard over rugged paths. Senator's hunger for instant updates mirrors his own impatience. Yet here the physical presence of messengers like Marcus carries weight his body, a moving ledger of trustworthiness in a city where printed word and spoken message intertwine precariously. Sometimes the shimmer of dawn reveals him resting briefly amid stone columns, fingers tracing messages paused mid-translation, mind ticking with strategies to optimize routes, reduce risks, and maintain fragile alliances. This growing network of early friendships acts as ballast. The shared knowledge of city streets, the exchanged tips about inns or taverns, the nods of recognition from familiar faces turn Rome's vastness into a patchwork mosaic rather than an overwhelming expanse. Marcus learns that survival depends on these human threads as much as on quick wit or memory. As evening falls, the flickering light softens the edges of the kitchen courtyard, and the clatter quiets into distant echoes. The slow pulse of fatigue settles along his shoulders and back, but beneath it simmers a quiet satisfaction, early signs of belonging amid this strange and sprawling city. The foreignness softens, not erased, but woven into the fabric of new routines, new alliances built on scraped sandals and clattering pots. The rough and steady rhythm of real work born in labor shared. The sharpness beats down relentlessly, turning stone surfaces and parchment edges dry and crumbly. as he bends over scribes' tables in the shade of a crowded forum courtyard. Around him, the murmur of conversation blends with the distant clang of bronze, the shuffle of sandals on gravel, and the soft scratching of reed pens marking messages that might never find their way intact. Marcus feels the grit of dust mixed with sweat under his nails, a constant reminder of a body living hard in this ancient city. Each fingertip, stained dark by ink that rarely washes clean, holds a bridge between his modern mind and the ancient world's painstaking communication. The letters he carries are more than words. They are vessels of urgent news or political maneuvering, slow and delicate in their journey compared to the instant pushing of emails he once mastered. His previous life as a call center worker, skilled in filtering priorities and threading connections, teaches him to bring order to this chaos. He studies the bundles of scrolls, sorting them with a logic born from managing thousands of calls and requests at a time. He creates invisible categories. What must travel fastest? What can wait? What demands secrecy? His fingers tracing storylines and deadlines. No one else has patience for here. The ink's sharp smell reminds him of the dangers inherent in every message. A misplaced word, an unread nuance could turn the tide of alliances or betray a senator's trust. His modern assumptions sprout in these moments. Where speed was once king, here precision demands equal reverence. He adapts his reasoning, triaging messages, not just by urgency, but by clarity, making mental notes of the scribes whose handwriting slows delivery or muddles meaning. The weight of ancient realities presses. Keenly emperors wage war on frontiers thousands of miles away. Legions battle Germanic tribes, and every report travels on foot or horse with fragile certainty. Epidemics whisper through the back alleys, a threat unspoken but palpable in the careful avoidance of certain couriers. Marcus encounters the slow rhythms of a world without technology and recalibrates his modern tools accordingly as he folds a scroll with practiced hands, sealing it tight for the next messenger. He senses the growing blend of his two worlds. The precision of modern protocols merges with the grandeur and grit of Roman life. The temple statues watching silently over the commerce and conspiracies below. By week's end, ink-stained and salt-sweated, Marcus reflects not on mastery, but on the patience required to shape meaning when every letter carries weight beyond the written word. The ancient city, with its slow, deliberate moves, reshapes his expectations. Survival here is a balance between speed and care, logic and intuition, the weight of history pressing firmly against the pulse of his modern mind. The sharp tang of burning pine needles curls through the night air, mixing with the smoky warmth of a low fire crackling amid rough stones. The faint scent of charred wood and damp earth rises as a thin breeze carries whispers from the darkened streets of Rome. Marcus feels the heat pressing gently against his chilled skin, the coarse texture of his wool cloak pulling tight against the evening hush. Around him, tired bodies settle into quiet murmurs and shifting shadows, a fragile circle of shared respite beneath a vast, indifferent sky. This week, after weeks of relentless motion and solitude, Marcus finds a new kind of comfort in these shared fires scattered through the city's hidden corners. Beneath flickering flames, the distance between messenger, servant, and senator's aide seems to soften, replaced by moments of tentative camaraderie. The grueling heat of midday, the ceaseless clatter of carts and voices, fade here into something gentler, an embered pause in a world of urgent demands. His call center instincts, that practiced patience, the calm voice threading through chaos, now extend to this fragile network of companionship. Here, near the crackling flames, simple gestures speak louder than words. The passing of a bowl, the clink of water cups, the tired but sharing glance. Marcus learns that survival leans as heavily on these small acts as on speed or cunning. Trust, after all, is a currency more precious than papyrus or ink. The sharp scent of roasting chestnuts and faint herbs stirs memories of his old life's comforts, the sterile quiet of office walls, the hum of machines. But here, comfort is drawn from shared vulnerability. The firelight frames faces weighted with exhaustion, hands calloused not just from running messages, but from the unyielding grind of ancient life. Marcus notices the subtle ways survival shapes those around him, a catch in a voice, a wince beneath a smile, the quick exchange of news between low whispers. Applying his modern logic, he begins to map these relationships with the same precision he used for managing calls and coordinating information flow. Friendships form along routes and routines. Favors are exchanged quietly. Life is negotiated softly in the shadows cast by flickering flames. His experience navigating frustration and broken systems offers him tools, now strategies, to steady nerves, anticipate needs, and sustain fragile alliances amid a city alive with rumor and power. His modern impatience fades, replaced by an appreciation for patience's necessity. Rome's tempo resists domination. It is a tide that must be felt and worked with. As word of illness spreads quietly through the city, as rumors of distant battles weigh on leaders, these small community moments become lifelines. By the end of the week, as embers fade to gray and cicadas pulse faintly in the warm night, Marcus carries a subtle but hard-earned victory, the recognition that in a world ruled by power and speed, survival often rests in shared fires, moments where strength softens and humanity flickers, brief but enduring, against a vast, unyielding past. Hidden tables, the faint scent of beeswax, and polished stone rises with the cool morning air, mingled with the lingering hint of crushed laurel leaves tucked into corner vases. Marcus feels the smooth, cool tile beneath his sandals as he steps softly through the Senate's inner chambers. A strange, quiet settling over spaces, usually alive with urgency and debate. This week marks a turning point. The city's ceaseless roar fades behind him as he moves deeper into the heart of Roman power, the home of senators who now rely on him not just as a messenger, but as an indispensable conduit of information. In these marble halls, where decisions ripple out to provinces and legions far beyond, Marcus senses the weight and fragility of the world he has entered. His modern skills mastery of communication, flow, rapid problem solving, and reading subtle shifts in tone become tools that secure his place here. He has learned the rhythms of urgency, balancing the senator's appetite for instant updates with the slow, often unpredictable pace of ancient information networks. Each message he delivers carries power, often shadowed by the threat of misinformation or delay. As he sorts scrolls and delivers coded parchments, he observes how the senator's staff work and live within a delicate ecosystem of trust and competition. His presence changes them subtly, his insistence on clarity directness born from years of managing. Irate, callers nudges scribes to improve legibility and prioritize messages more effectively. Sometimes, his modern logic clashes with centuries-old routines, but it also gains quiet respect. The sensory world of the Senate unfurls around hymn-soft clatter of wax seals broken, the rustle of heavy togas brushing marble, the distant murmur of oratory practice warming up in the atrium. Marcus's breath mingles with the faint aroma of spiced wine set out for early meetings, anchoring him further to this new life. Touching the scrolls, he feels the permanence and fragility of words, the slow but decisive shaping of history in every carefully penned line. Outside, rumors of unrest beyond the Danube echo faintly through the city, a reminder that the empire's borders pulse with danger and uncertainty. Marcus carries knowledge that can alter fates, but this power humbles him. The senators depend on a flow of information that is neither instantaneous nor certain, demanding patience and steadiness. By the end of the week, as morning light softens the sharp edges of stone columns, and the city begins to stir beyond these halls, Marcus feels the beginnings of belonging. The mosaic floors beneath his feet are worn by generations of ambition and intrigue. But for the first time, he touches something grounding a fragile sense of home amid Rome's relentless demands, the hard-earned comfort does not erase fatigue or fear, but offers an anchor in a life suspended between worlds. He realizes survival here means weaving himself into currents older and broader than any he had known, balancing present urgency with enduring patience, and finding solidity in the shifting sands of power and time. Of hurried conversations and the scratch of reed pens dipping into pools of ink. Marcus feels the weight of scrolls beneath his hands, textured and fragile, their edges worn smooth by countless fingers before his. The air vibrates with the quiet urgency of messages that will shape decisions far beyond these marble walls. Here, in the heart of Rome's senatorial chambers, Marcus senses a subtle shift, not just in his surroundings, but in himself. The weeks spent running between the city's winding streets and grand forums have brought him closer to those whose lives unfold intertwined with power and history's slow grinding forces. These scrolls, these traded missives scented faintly with laurel and soot, are more than just information. They are lifelines, fragile threads binding distant provinces, armies, and senators. His mind still sharp from years managing voice flows and problem solving, Marcus applies modern logic to this ancient craft. He organizes messages not only by urgency, but by trustworthiness, learning which scribe's hand carries clarity and which muddles meaning. He devises subtle methods to flag priority, borrowing from the structured call center systems he once mastered, yet adapting to the fluid, unpredictable rhythms of Rome's political undercurrents. Interactions with senators and their aides grow steadier. Marcus notices how trust is built not just through swift delivery, but through shared diligence and discretion. The sending and receiving of information becomes a ritual, a delicate dance of gestures, the passing of scrolls with a respectful nod, the soft lowering of eyes to convey confidentiality, the measured pauses that hint at unspoken concerns. Ancient rituals color his days. He sees laurel wreaths worn in Senate meeting symbols of victory, and honor juxtaposed with the pressing reality of whispers about unrest along distant frontiers, where legions battle the Germanic tribes. The ever-present threat of epidemics haunts the city's edges, reminding him that urgency carries the weight of life itself. As ink-stained fingertips brush parchment, Marcus senses the convergence of his two worlds. The tactile immediacy of physical scrolls contrasts sharply with the invisible data streams he knew. Yet the core challenge remains: delivering clarity amid noise, building connections amid chaos. Here, trust is both a fragile artifact and a powerful tool. By the week's end, the scent of laurel lingers not just in the air, but in Marcus's awareness. His fatigue melts into a quiet satisfaction, the realization that survival in Rome depends as much on shared effort and silent understanding as on speed or innovation. In these small, ink-scented moments, bonds strengthen, and amidst the swirl of empire and intrigue, a stranger begins to feel a fragile sense of belonging, moving through columns that rise like silent sentinels against a pale sky. The faint scent of mildew and crushed laurel leaves clings to the cool stone, mingling with a distant murmur of voices filtered through heavy wooden doors. Marcus feels the smooth chill of polished marble beneath his palm as he traces a worn groove along a pillar. The weight of countless footsteps pressing history into the very walls. This week, as he moves through these cavernous chambers, Marcus begins to grasp the tangled web of relationships hidden beneath Rome's grand facade. The senators and their aides are nodes in a sprawling network fragile alliances, simmering rivalries, whispered deals that relies not just on messages carried swiftly on foot, but on knowledge of people, places, and unspoken rules. It is social engineering, as intricate as any system he once managed behind a headset. His mind, trained in analyzing flow and prioritizing calls, now maps paths through this human labyrinth. He notices how a gesture holds more meaning than a spoken word, how a glance across a heated debate signals unseen alliances. The senator's impatience for updates is tempered by a cautious dance of diplomacy news must be delivered with tact, or it becomes a weapon rather than a tool. Every scroll he carries, every coded mark he creates, threads him tighter into this social fabric. He watches as scribes annotate messages with subtle signs, carefully chosen words that signal trustworthiness or secrecy. The constant interplay between transparency and discretion reminds Marcus of complaint handling back home, where patience, clarity, and strategic silence often prevented crises more than rapid response. Beyond the walls, rumors of distant wars weigh heavily. The northern frontiers tremble with skirmishes against Germanic tribes, the distant sounds of conflict echoing faintly in Rome's political heartbeat. Epidemics whisper through crowded quarters, and Marcus senses the fragile edges of this empire's power, balanced delicately on communication, just as fragile. The tactile world of marble and papyrus contrasts sharply with his past digital screens, but the problem remains: how to sustain connections in a vast, unruly system. Each interaction must be read not only for content, but for context and unspoken social code that Marcus begins to decode with growing confidence. At week's end, as sunset filters gold through carved archways, throwing long shadows across mosaic floors, Marcus feels the quiet weight of understanding settle within him. The ancient city's social pulse reveals itself through these echoes, complex, relentless, human. Survival here means more than running messages. It demands an acute awareness of the invisible threads weaving power and trust in Rome's enduring tapestry. The sweet scent of rain striking sun-warmed terracotta roofs. Tiny droplets drum against stone and carry the fresh, earthy scent of dust stirred loose from ancient streets. Marcus feels the quick, cool splash on his face and arms, a sharp contrast to the dry heat that's baked the city for weeks. The mosaics beneath his sandals become slick, the colors deepening as rain darkens the marble and earth around him. Voices hush, pedestrians quicken, and the world seems to tilt towards something unfamiliar, yet strikingly vivid. This unexpected Reina sudden gift from the gods, or nature itself, pierces through the relentless grind of his days. Marcus has been moving through Rome's labyrinthine challenges for weeks. A call center worker turned messenger, weaving between senators hungry for updates and the raw pulse of an ancient city. His mind, trained in efficiency and flow, now learns to embrace the unpredictable rhythms of this new world. The rain sharpens his senses, pulling him into the immediate moment. As he navigates the soaked cobbles, Marcus notices how the storm reshapes everything. The air hums with fresh life, steam rising from heated rooftops, the scent of wet olive trees mingling with the sharp odor of burnt pitch from nearby workshops. His soaked tunic sticks to his skin, the chill a stark reminder of his body's limits amid the ceaseless demands of running messages and managing fragile trust. The rain interrupts routine, forcing a pause that feels both intrusive and necessary. It mirrors the sudden disruptions he's learned to manage unexpected delays in delivering news, broken chains of communication between Rome and its frontier armies, and the precarious balance between haste and accuracy in a city where misinformation can shift power overnight. In this moment, grounded amid soaked stones and glistening leaves, he understands survival not only as adaptation, but as resilience finding clarity and calm amid chaos. His modern tools logical frameworks, problem-solving skills serve him well, but the city teaches him patience with uncertainty, respect for the unpredictable tides of weather, politics, and human will. By week's end, as clouds lighten and puddles reflect the awakening sun, Marcus feels a subtle shift. The rain-washed city no longer feels as alien. It carries a promise of renewal and clarity beneath its relentless demands. He realizes that just as rain reshapes the earth, so too must he allow himself to be shaped by these ancient streets. A quiet surrender to the rhythms beyond control. A small victory born in the cool breath of sudden rain, and steady in the evening hush. The air is thick with settling warmth, a soft reprieve from the day's heat. carrying a fragile silence that feels almost foreign amidst Rome's constant buzz. This week, after countless frenetic journeys through crowded forums and echoing halls, Marcus finds himself here, a still refuge where the relentless pace slackens and a deep sense of belonging begins to take root. The senator's sprawling palaces and bustling staff, once intimidating, now settle into something resembling home. His role as messenger, once just a job, starts to entwine with relationships built on trust, discretion, and mutual reliance. His modern experience in managing complex flows of communication shapes these connections. He recognizes that survival in this world is less about speed alone and more about understanding the subtle dynamics at play, the importance of patience, of timing messages carefully, of reading the unspoken as keenly as the written. The quiet moments in this courtyard, sharing water drawn from the communal well, or breaking stale bread beside another weary hand, become as significant as any message delivered under pressure. Silence here is layered and complex. It is not emptiness, but a shared breath, a tacit acknowledgement of exhaustion and perseverance. Under the soft light, faces relax, and Marcus sees in the faint smiles and exchanged nods the early signs of belonging to a network woven not just of duty, but of fragile camaraderie forged under Rome's unyielding sky. Outside these walls, the empire groans with unrest, the distant revolts simmer. The looming threat of disease lingers like a shadow over crowded districts. Yet here, in this courtyard, time slows just enough for Marcus to catch his breath. The cool stone grounds him. The steady rhythm of lamps and settling dust offers a quiet counterpoint to the day's chaos. His body aches with fatigue, but his mind sharpens. The city's harshness has not softened, but he has learned to carve out spaces of peace within it. Here, among the murmurs and flickering light, he tastes the elusive possibility of stability. As night deepens, the courtyard exhales a delicate stillness. Marcus holds this moment lightly, aware that belonging is fragile and fleeting, yet utterly necessary. In the quiet, beneath the watchful gaze of towering columns, he feels the faint but unmistakable pulse of home beginning to beat inside him. The texture of ink-stained parchment, tracing the uneven lines written by cautious hands centuries removed from his own, yet brimming with urgent knowledge. This week, Marcus feels the heavy tug of knowledge, the sharp temptation of modern insight pressed against the slow, deliberate rhythms of ancient Rome. His experience managing information flows from a call center, refracts oddly in this setting, where every bit of news carries the weight of power, and every message navigates a delicate web of alliances and distrust. With his mind trained to parse urgency and decipher coded frustration, Marcus approaches the flow of information not simply as delivery, but as intelligence. He begins to foresee the consequences of hastened or delayed messages, the butterfly effects that might spiral from a single misstep. His modern assumptions push him to tweak existing systems, suggesting ways to categorize messages, prioritize routes, even streamline scribes' annotations. Some senators welcome these adjustments as glimpses of progress. Others view them with wary suspicion, a reminder that knowledge is as much a source of fear as of power here. Yet, this sharp edge of insight presses uneasily against the ancient world's shadows. The speed and clarity Marcus longs for are often unavailable news from the northern frontiers, arrives broken and delayed, carried by weary runners scarred by disease and war. The imperial court's ambitions ripple outward on whispers and half-truths, and Marcus realizes that control over information often depends less on facts than on who controls the narrative. He watches carefully as trust and deception entwine, noticing how even the smallest slip a forgotten mark on a scroll, a delayed courier can unsettle fragile allegiances. His modern clarity sharpens his understanding of Rome's social complexities, but it also reveals limits he cannot overcome. The slow grind of empire, the human cost beneath every calculation. By week's end, ink-stained and weary, Marcus confronts a paradox. The power of knowledge is as much a burden as a tool. His modern skills give him advantage, but also heighten his awareness of uncertainty and risk. In the ancient silence beneath flickering lamplight, he senses that survival depends not only on insight, but on humility, a willingness to navigate shadows as deftly as truths, and to accept the imperfections woven into the fabric of time and human will. The air is heavy with the quiet tension of unspoken words. Footsteps softened against worn stone as shadows coil long and low beneath vaulted ceilings. Marcus feels the hardness of the polished floor beneath his sandals, his breath steady but shallow, sensing the weight pressing invisibly around him, the weight of secrets hung carefully between whispered meetings and guarded glances. This week, the burden of his role deepens. The countless messages he carries are no longer mere information. They are fragments of trust and betrayal, strands in a vast and intricate web where every detail can tip balances of power. His modern instincts, sharpened by years of untangling complex conversations under pressure, now grapple with the moral maze that ancient Rome demands. The clarity of logic meets the fog of politics, and Marcus feels the uneasy pull between what he knows and what he must keep silent. His skills in parsing urgency and prioritizing calls translate into a ruthless efficiency in navigating these whispered corridors. Yet, The deeper he moves into Rome's inner circles, the more he confronts the limits of transparency. Some scrolls weigh heavier than others. The veiled warnings, the deliberately obscured truths, the subtle manipulations of senatorial rivals. He senses how knowledge itself becomes currency, and how hoarding or releasing it shapes destinies. The smell of burnt oil and dust clogs the air as Marcus passes beneath archways where servants and scribes exchange furtive looks. Epidemics ripple through the city's poorer districts, their menace unspoken in the marbled halls, but present in the hurried urgency of some messages. Beyond the Senate walls, armies prepare for uncertain campaigns along restless borders, and the sparse news filters slowly through a network strained by fear and ambition. Marcus wrestles with his modern assumptions about duty and honesty. His training emphasized clarity and solving problems openly. But here discretion can be just as vital, sometimes more so. Each message delivered is a choice, each secret concealed, a small betrayal or silent protection. He feels the pressure mounting, the slow erosion of certainty. As the week's shadow lengthens and the city exhales into night, Marcus lets the silence settle thickly around him. The moral conflict that winds through his days is neither relief nor resolve, but a quiet, persistent struggle. In this ancient world where power and survival intertwine, he understands that strength often lies not in transparency, but in the delicate balance of knowledge held, withheld, and sometimes surrendered against the rough plaster walls, their golden glow trembling softly in the quiet room. The musky scent of burning tallow mingles with the faint aroma of crushed herbs set in small clay dishes, releasing a subtle bitterness into the still air. Marcus feels the rough grain of the wooden table beneath his fingertips, his hands steady, but his mind alive with tension as the hushed murmurs outside ripple faintly through thick curtains. Tonight, beneath these flickering lamps in a dim, secluded chamber, Marcus stands in the eye of an invisible storm. Messages carried from distant provinces weigh heavily in his scroll satchel. Whispers of unrest and political intrigue threading through every carefully inked letter. The tension is palpable, not just in the air, but in the tightness of his chest and the sharp focus of his gaze. Each shadowed corner seems to hold a secret. Each breath measures the fragile balance between silence and action. His modern skills, a lifetime of managing complex calls, deciphering urgency, and negotiating with frustrated voices, now shape his approach to a world steeped in layers of secret allegiances and perilous decisions. He counts not just words, but consequences. Every message has power, and every delay, omission, or slip could topple alliances or spark violence. The calculus is brutal. Far from the comforting scripts of his previous life, Marcus weighs options silently. To speak to deliver news fully and immediately could provoke reactions beyond control. To withhold or reshape information offers safety, but at the cost of truth and trust. His hands tremble slightly, holding a scroll that could alter fates. He recognizes the echoes of call center ethics, clashing with survival instincts. The duty to inform balanced against the necessity to protect. Outside, distant thunder rumbles as rain begins ghosting lightly against stone roofs, underscoring the moment's gravity with nature's quiet backdrop. News from the Northern Front pierces the Senate's corridors reports of shifting alliances among barbarian tribes and disease lurking in military camps. Senators and generals alike wait, hungry for clarity, blind to the shadowed path Marcus must choose. As the candles gutter low, exhaustion coils deep within him, but so does resolve. The ancient world demands not just action or silence, but wisdom forged in discomfort. In that flickering light, Marcus understands that survival is a dance on a blades, edge where every choice carries weight, every secret risks fracture, and the human cost remains uncertain, yet inevitable. Marcus feels the rough grain of the shattered wood beneath his fingers, splinters pricking the skin, a tangible reminder of fragility and sudden change. The lingering scent of damp earth seeps through the open window, mingling with the faint smoke of extinguished torches, creating an atmosphere thick with tension and unspoken consequences. This week, Marcus stands at the fulcrum of power and conscience. The fragile tablet held coded messages details of alliances, secret deals, and shifts in senatorial favor. Its sudden breakage is more than a physical rupture. It symbolizes the fragile threads of trust and influence he now navigates daily. His ascent as the messenger trusted by senators craving instant updates comes with unseen costs, each precise delivery threading him deeper into Rome's political web. His modern skills logical analysis, rapid problem solving, and conflict de-escalation give him tools to manage this complexity. But they also sharpen the edges of his moral conflict. Every message he carries alters dynamics. Every choice to withhold, relay, or rephrase carries weight. He senses that power here is wielded through information as much as with swords, and he holds a blade tempered by knowledge and consequence. The weight of responsibility presses heavily. The city outside hums with unrest legions stir along distant borders. Rumors of rebellion swirl in aging taverns, and epidemic whispers haunt the city's shadow signals that few messages escape the urgency and fear suffusing the atmosphere. Marcus watches the senators closely, noticing how their demands for rapid news sometimes eclipse the ethical lines he once held firm. cracked tablet fragments beside him mirror his fractured certainty. Modern assumptions about transparency falter in a world where secrecy shields power. His desire for clarity collides with the need for survival. The intricate dance between truth and diplomacy stretches thin, and Marcus feels the strain in each hurried footstep racing along marble halls, in each guarded exchange behind painted frescoes. By the week's end, weariness floods his limbs, but the ache is doubled by reflection. Power gained by bearing secrets is a double-edged sword, cutting deeper than any blade. Marcus recognizes that adaptation here demands more than skill. It demands constant negotiation with conscience, a balance as delicate as the splintered wood under his fingers, and as fragile as the alliances that surround him. Footsteps echoes faintly down narrow alleys, mingling with the rustling of loose leaves blown across the marble courtyards. Marcus feels the chill tighten around his cloak, the fabric heavy with moisture, and the weight of exhaustion pressing deep into his bones. Evening's hush settles, but beneath it, an unsettling tension coils uneasy, electric, and growing sharper with each passing hour. This week, the cost of change begins to reveal itself in stark relief. As Marcus navigates his role as a trusted messenger in the senator's fragile networks, he senses that every every quickened delivery, every innovation he introduced is drawing unseen consequences. Rome's sprawling, ancient machinery resists alteration in ways his modern mind had only tentatively guessed. The speed he brings clashes quietly with centuries-old suspicions and slow-moving powers, his call center training sharp decision-making under pressure. Balancing urgency with clarity grants him advantage, but it also magnifies the stakes. He now understands that survival is not just about efficiency, but about navigating treacherous human currents, where information is a weapon and trust a rare commodity. The very innovations he champions provoke whispers of distrust, the guarded looks that follow him through marble halls, and the uneven loyalties of those who watch and wait. Outside, the empire's edges bristle with turmoil. News trickles in of Germanic tribes pressing against the frontiers, legions weary from skirmishes. Inside the city, rumors of epidemic spread weave through crowded forums. The weight of these threats presses into the corridors Marcus crosses, folding urgency and fear into the messages. He must carry messages that could ignite hope or destruction, depending on whom they reach. Tonight, beneath the cold grip of nightfall, Marcus feels the slow sinking of fatigue mingle with a sharp awareness of isolation. His modern assumptions clash with the harsh realities around him. Control is fleeting, and clarity often elusive. The energies that once powered steady progress now flicker uncertainly amid shadows cast by flickering lamps. As he pauses beside a silent fountain, the cold stone pressing against his back, a subtle truth seeps in. Change always comes with cost. The price is not measured in scrolls delivered or messages decoded, but in the quiet erosion of certainty, the slow stretching of alliances, and the fragile endurance of a single human heart caught between worlds. In this twilight, Marcus confronts the relentless, unyielding fact that adaptation is survival's first demand end, that survival asks endless price. Baked dust rising in lazy swirls from the busy thoroughfares. Marcus feels the uneven stone touch his sandals, rough and worn by countless footsteps, as he weaves purposefully through the throng. A bundle of messages secured carefully against his chest. This week, he begins to sense the unseen ripples his frantic journeys create in Rome's bustling streets. His role as a messenger, once confined to delivering words, now feels like a thread tugging on a complex web of human lives. The information he carries, the latest edicts, warnings from distant fronts, secret alert shapes, not just decisions in marble courts, but can also sway traders' fortunes, stir whispers in taverns, or tighten the nerves of city guards. With skills honed in a world of instant communication and managed complaints, Marcus applies reason and strategic thinking to optimize routes, minimize delays, and prioritize messages that carry the greatest weight. He watches how a delayed scroll in one district can cascade into confusion downstream, how a misunderstanding might shift the tone of a senator's day, or send a courier sprinting to avert crisis. His engineer's mind builds mental maps of both geography and social networks, tracing invisible currents beneath the city's surface. Yet, even as he grows more adept, Marcus confronts the limits imposed by Rome's world, the unpredictability of whether clogging roads with mud, the rivalries that block access to certain quarters, the weight of fear during outbreaks of distant epidemics. His modern assumptions about control and precision clash with messy human reality, teaching him patience and humility. Each step in the crowded streets carries the weight of responsibility. The laughter of children playing nearby, the nervous glance of a merchant guarding his goods, the whispered warnings of a shadow passing all, ripple subtly in response to the news Marcus carries. He feels connected to invisible lives now, aware that his actions feed into a vast, interlocking system. As dusk settles, casting long shadows between columns and market stalls, Marcus allows himself a moment of quiet reflection. The city's heartbeat pulses beneath his feet, complex, fragile, alive. He understands now that survival here is not merely about managing messages, but about sensing the delicate, unseen impact of every choice, every step, every word delivered into the ever-turning machinery of Rome. The finger neatly from a distant corner. Marcus tastes something sour in the dust, swirling at his lips. The bitter aftertaste, tracing the edges of a message delivered too hastily. A decision made with incomplete knowledge. This week, the weight of unintended consequences presses heavily on him. The swift transmission of news, once a source of pride born from his modern skills in managing crisis and communication, now feels tainted by ripple effects he barely controls. A single scroll sent, without full context, has unleashed suspicion between senators, spawned confusion among couriers, and left a merchant family scrambling to protect their wares. Marcus feels the prickling sting of responsibility metastasizing beyond his calculated intentions. His life in the call center trained him in handling irritation, diffusing anger, and steering conversations toward calm resolutions. Yet here, in ancient Rome's tangled web of politics and personal ambition, messages are more than words. They carry power, and power breeds unpredictable consequences. The complex social dance he once observed now entangles him. Every action stretches wider than he imagined, each choice layered with human need, fear, and fallout. The market's vibrant chaos, once a backdrop to his duties, now mirrors his inner turmoil. Traders shout over the din. Scents of roasted meats and fresh herbs jostle against the sharp stench of waste. And the rhythm of the city pulses with relentless energy, unaware or indifferent to the invisible fractures his messages cause. Epidemics quietly spread through cramped neighborhoods. Soldiers from distant frontiers bring rumors of shifting alliances that stir anxiety in the forums. The tension tightens. Marcus contemplates how his modern assumptions clear facts lead to better decisions collapse under Rome's fog of secrecy, mistrust, and fear. Swift updates sometimes inflict damage, forcing him to negotiate not just logistics, but the fragile art of discretion. The experiment of blending his future logic with the ancient world's realities reveals its limits in the sour taste now settling deep. As the sun dips and lantern light flickers over worn stone, he carries the bitter awareness that knowledge can wound as much as heal. Survival here demands not just speed or skill, but a humility to bear burden, unforeseen and heavy a quiet reckoning with the fragile consequences of trying to change a world rooted in shadows and silence. The fatigue settling in his bones now carries a new weight. The cost of unintended harm beneath the city's unyielding sky. The faint stench of stale wine lingers in the narrow alley where Marcus pauses. The faint murmur of distant voices drifting up from lit windows around him. The rough cobblestones beneath his sandals feel uneven and cold, slick from recent rain, and somewhere not far off, a dog barks sharply before silence folds over the city. He catches the wary, questioning glances of passers-by eyes that measure, weigh, and sometimes mistrust. It's a slow shift, subtle but persistent. The strain in relationships forged anew, strained further by the changes his presence, his knowledge, has wrought. This week unfolds with the awkward weight of newfound tension. Marcus, once a faceless thread in a web of delivery, moves more fully into the fabric of Rome's power dynamics. His role as a messenger no longer seems simple. The information he carries ripples outward with unpredictable effects, drawing more eyes and more suspicion. Senators, once grateful, begin to express impatience and caution. Aides exchange wary whispers, and some corners of the city grow colder as rumors twist and curl around his name. His modern skills in deciphering tone, managing urgency, and negotiating frustration help him adapt. But they cannot shield him from the undercurrent of doubt running beneath these interactions. His assumptions about transparency and efficiency clash with a culture steeped in secrecy and calculated omission. And he senses that every trust earned is tempered by anxiety. The encounter of the future's straightforwardness with antiquity's layered stratagems reshapes the bonds he must rely on. Beneath the grand arches and quiet courtyards, Marcus watches the shifting, expressions-tightened jaws, narrowed eyes, hesitant nods, and understands that survival here demands more than speed or clarity. It demands tact, patience, and an awareness of the opaque motives at play. This ancient city's social fabric stretches taut, pulled by ambitions and fears as ancient as its stones. Outside, the pulse of the city beats on-market cries, distant clatter of carts, the faint tolling of a temple bell butt beneath it. A quieter tension hums, born of disruption and mistrust. Marcus feels it as a physical tension rippling through his own body, a reminder that the path he walks is narrow and fraught. As the day wanes and shadows lengthen, he allows a moment to settle the weariness thick in his limbs. The firm connections he sought come with fragility. The promise of belonging is shadowed by the cost of change. Amid these questioning eyes, Marcus senses an unyielding truth that every step forward must reckon with the fractures it leaves behind. The lingering scent of crushed laurel and old parchment. Light filters unevenly through narrow windows set high in thick walls, casting long shadows that pool among marble columns inscribed with names long faded by time. Marcus feels the hard chill of the stone beneath his hands as he steadies a scroll before the murmured disputes around him swell and recede like restless waves. This week, the weight of responsibility settles into his bones. The Senate, a grand stage of power and ambition, demands more than swiftness and precision. It demands an unyielding grasp of consequence. Each message Marcus carries not just news, but the fragile balance of alliances, the thin line between trust and betrayal. His past life, with its neat systems and clear hierarchies, offers little shelter here, where politics and human nature twist unpredictably beneath Rome's gilded surface. His modern skills, the calm focus to unravel tangled conversations, the logic to prioritize competing demands, help him navigate this volatile environment. Yet, every carefully delivered scroll, every whispered word exchanged in shadowed corners, reminds him that knowledge is both a weapon and a burden. Unintended outcomes ripple in ways his experience once taught him to anticipate, but here test limits beyond calculation. The Senate's voices rise and fall with urgency and suspicion, sometimes sharply focused, often clouded in guarded intent. From distant frontiers come faltering reports of strife and sickness, each delayed courier carrying a fragment of the empire's fragile stability. Marcus senses that the city, beneath its surface grandeur, teeters on tipping points, and his role is a thread in the delicate weave, holding order and chaos apart. As dust settles into the folds of togas and fills the quiet moments between declarations, Marcus' thoughts grow heavy with the knowledge that survival here is less about mastery and more about acceptance, a reckoning with power's cost and the slow erosion of certainty. Amid the cold stones and watchful eyes, he feels the deep pulse of responsibility settle firmly upon him, an unspoken truth beneath Rome's endless sky. Where Marcus pauses, the scent of burning tallow mingling with the faint, earthy aroma of crushed herbs piled in small clay bowls. The low murmur of distant voices drifts in from courtyards beyond, blending with the gentle crackle of a hearth's dying embers. His fingers rest lightly on a parchment scroll, the grainy texture grounding him amid the quiet night's stillness. This week brings rare moments of calma, fragile pause, carved from the relentless pace of Rome's busy streets and urgent demands. Here, in the flickering light, Marcus finds time not only to prepare, but also to reflect, gathering strength for the uncertain road ahead. His role as a messenger trusted by senators hungry for news carries weight beyond mere delivery. It demands insight, resilience, and a growing understanding of the human networks that pulse beneath the empire's marble surface. His modern, skill-sharp logic, rapid problem-solving, efforts to organize chaotic flows of information serve him well as he sifts through messages and plans routes. Yet these quiet moments reveal the limits of efficiency. They expose the complexity of relationships, the subtle interplay of trust and caution that colors every interaction. The pressing needs of empire clash with the fragility of human bonds, and Marcus feels this tension keenly as he prepares for tasks yet to come. Outside, faint whispers circulate of shifting alliances and unrest along Rome's distant borders. News from military outposts arrives in waves, each arrival carrying both hope and fear. The threat of epidemics lingers, casting shadows over crowded districts and reminding all of life's precariousness. The city's rhythm slows as night deepens, but the pulse of change beats steadily, relentless beneath the calm. Marcus's thoughts drift between past and present, the sterile control rooms of his former life, and the vibrant, unpredictable streets before him. He senses that survival here will depend less on the certainty he once prized and more on flexibility, patience, and the capacity to read between lines written in ink and gesture. As the lamps flicker low and the courtyard's soft sounds meld into the night, he embraces the quiet as both refuge and preparation. The weight of what is to come presses lightly now, but promises to grow. In this fragile peace, Marcus readies himself not just to carry messages, but to carry the burden of adaptation, resilience, and the enduring human will to endure. Indifferent and eternal, while below, the laughter and murmurs of senators and their aides ripple gently against worn stone walls. The cool touch of evening breeze brushes across his skin, carrying with it a sense of fragile calm amid the city's restless pulse. This week unfolds beneath these Roman stars, marking a moment where bonds deepen even as desires and doubts entwine. Marcus, once a stranger wielding only the tools of modern logic and swift communication, finds himself drawn increasingly into the intricate human web that supports the empire's vast machinery. His role as messenger bridges divides, yet also places him amid conflicting loyalties and hidden yearnings. His call center-honed skills resilience under pressure, careful listening, rapid problem-solving now guide him through social terrains dense with unspoken language and subtle power plays. He discerns tensions flickering in sidelong glances, senses the careful measurement of trust that underpins alliances as fragile as parchment scrolls. These soft exchanges linger in his mind, more complex than any data stream he once managed. The city hums with life. Distant footsteps on cobbles, the clink of wine cups raised in shadowed alcoves, the faint rustle of silk mingling with whispered plans. Yet beneath this vitality lies an undercurrent of conflict. Political rivalries sharpen as campaigns in distant provinces strain Rome's resources and patience. Epidemics simmer quietly, touching lives unseen but keenly felt, a sobering reminder of mortality within imperial ambition. Marcus wrestles with desires both personal and practical, the pull of belonging against the weight of duty, the hope for connection, tempered by the history of mistrust. His modern assumptions about transparency and progress clash subtly with Rome's layered decorum and guarded hearts, teaching him anew the price of adaptation. As dawn's first light peers over tiled roofs, painting the city gold, Marcus feels the fragile pulse of trust growing stronger. Yet shadowed by uncertainty, the night's quiet leaves its imprint, a moment's peace amid turmoil, a heartbeat in a city that never truly sleeps. In this intimate space, beneath ancient stars, he senses that survival demands not just skill or knowledge, but a deepening humanity, tethered by shared vulnerability and the complex dance of power and desire. The scent of heated metal mingles with dust and smoke, while the rhythmic clang of hammer striking anvil pulses like a heartbeat beneath the courtyard sky. The warmth from the forge seeps into the cool evening, wrapping around him as the two hands rest together briefly, steady and grounded against the backdrop of Rome's relentless bustle. In this unexpected moment, Marcus senses a fragile and growing tethera human bond emerging from the harshness of daily survival. His life, once defined by the sterile distance of headset and screen, now unfolds amid tactile realities, the rough texture of stone walls, the sting of dust in the throat, and the steady pressure of a hand reaching out, not merely in transaction, but in something deeper. The skills honed in countless hours, managing frustrated voices listening past complaint to need, weaving clarity from chaos, draw him closer here. He navigates not just the flow of messages, but the complex currents of trust, respect, and tentative affection that color human connection. The physical world's immediacy contrasts with the virtual distance of his former life, bringing new lessons in presence and vulnerability. Around them, the city hums, merchants bargaining fiercely, the distant drone of philosophically debates spilling from open domes, the faint splash of water from a nearby fountain. Epidemics whisper through shadows, and Rome's political tides stir restlessly. Yet, in this fiery warmth, time softens, and ritual gives way to quiet intimacy. Marcus grapples with the echo of modern assumptions, how quick communication once locked him behind protective screens, how connection was measured in voice minutes and data flows. Now, survival requires enduring the slow, layered dance of trust built in shared labor and unguarded moments. The heat on his skin, the grit under fingernails, the weight of hands joined briefly. These become the new language of belonging. As night deepens and stars pierce the velvet sky, Marcus allows the fragile comfort to settle, a balm for weary muscles and a respite for restless thoughts. The unexpected warmth lingers, a reminder that even amid Rome's ceaseless demands, the quiet touch of human bond might be the truest survival. In this fragile tenderness, shaped by rough hands and shared flames, he senses not just a fleeting moment, but a new beginning. The teeth, earthy and grainy, while the bitter sharpness of wild greens cleanses his palate. Around him, the chatter softens into moments of shared silence, punctuated by the occasional clink of crude clay cups holding cooled wine. The uneven stone floor beneath his feet, warmed by the day's sun, offers a simple but grounding comfort amid the city's relentless demands. This week, amidst the austerity of ancient hardship, Marcus encounters the quiet power of shared meals, a ritual stripped of pomp, yet rich with meaning. As a messenger navigating the labyrinthine networks of Rome's senators and citizens, he had rarely paused to savor such moments. Now, nourished by these simple tastes and the steady presence of companions, he feels a deeper commitment take root, not just to his role, but to the fragile community knitting itself around him. His modern mind, once wired for efficiency and clear communication, learns here the importance of patience and presence. The tactile experience of breaking bread together, the shared stories held in weary smiles, teach him lessons no call script ever could. These meals are more than sustenance. They are a quiet pact of loyalty and trust, forged in the gritty reality of empire, where survival is threaded through acts both public and intimate. The world beyond the courtyard walls churns with politics and peril. Reports arrive slowly from distant battlefronts, where legions face Germanic tribes, and the specter of sporadic epidemics looms over packed urban quarters. Each urgency sharpens the edge of Marcus's responsibilities. Yet here he finds space to breathe, to connect, to ground himself in human resilience. The tactile contrasts the rough bread against his teeth, the sturdy fabric of his worn tunic. The warmth of shared firelight anchors him in this era's unvarnished truth. His modern assumptions about progress and immediacy ebb against the rhythm of an ancient city that moves with deliberate, sometimes harsh cadence. As dusk wanes and stars prick the darkening sky, Marcus reflects on the quiet strength wrapped in these simple meals. The fatigue pressing on his limbs flows into a deeper awareness that amid Rome's grandeur and chaos, survival and loyalty often reveal themselves in the most modest acts of shared bread crust. A steady hand passing a cup, the warmth of presence against cold, uncertain nights. The cold fills the dim chamber where Marcus leans, shadows flickering from a nearby oil lamp, casting moving shapes on mosaic floors below. The quiet drip of water echoes softly somewhere beyond thick walls, a reminder of slow, persistent time. He feels the weight of memory settling uneasily beneath the surface, both his own and that of this ancient city carved into the stone beneath him. This week, the past reaches out with quiet insistence, entangled with his present. Rome's layered history presses against Marcus in sharp moments. A collapsed scroll, a faded inscription, the whispered stories of senators and servants bound by duty or regret. His modern eyes search for clarity in the patterns etched by centuries. But these stones whisper of complexity, of fate shaped by choices both vast and minute. His call center experience equips him with skills of logic, rapid response, and patient listening. But those tools now meet the heavy mist of history's mysteries. The messages he carries are drenched with present urgency and shadowed by echoes of past decisions that ripple silently through politics and personal ambition. Every delivery feels like stepping across a fragile bridge, built on trust, fear, and often unspoken sorrow. Outside, the city breathes with the faint noise of daily life. The clatter of carts, the murmur of voices in the market, children chasing fleeting shadows down narrow streets. Yet beneath this vitality runs a deeper current of memory and consequence. Epidemics ripple softly beneath surfaces. Wars rumble on distant frontiers, and the Senate debates thunder like distant storms. Marcus touches the rough stone again, feeling the past beneath his skin, grounding him even as it unsettles. He contemplates how his modern certainty falters in this world, where history coexists with the immediate, where survival is not just swift reaction, but a negotiation with time itself. As the lamp's glow flickers low and the night deepens, he carries the fragile burden of memory alongside his role-aware now that living here means embracing the weight of what has been, alongside what can yet be changed. The cold stone of memory is neither comfort nor curse, but a constant companion with its own lessons on endurance, legacy, and the human quiet beneath the roar of empire. The stone walls. The air is thick with the smoky scent of burning resin, mixed with faint traces of jasmine from nearby gardens. Marcus feels the warmth of the flame brush his face, a tiny comfort after days of relentless motion through Rome's crowded streets. Around him, the hushed voices of familiar faces mingle with the occasional scrape of sandals, a low murmur that folds into the night's calm, intimate and steady. This week, Marcus immerses himself in the fragile warmth of new bonds, a family forged not by blood, but by shared purpose and perseverance. The courtyards and chambers he once saw as mere stops on his messenger routes now pulse with life, threaded by connections deepening over shared light and stories exchanged in the soft glow. His modern skills organizing information, navigating complex human dynamics, serve not only to deliver messages, but to sustain this delicate network of trust. The ancient city moves around him, full of contradictions, while political intrigue simmers in shadowed halls, and reports trickle slowly from distant borders bruised by conflict. Here, in these quiet moments, human resilience shines through the everyday acts, passing a cup of watered wine, offering a slice of bread, exchanging a weary smile becomes small anchors amid turmoil, affirmations of survival and connection. Marcus's former life had prepared him for fast decisions and clear protocols. But Rome demands something different: patience with imperfection, attention to unspoken needs, and the humility to accept what cannot be controlled. These lantern-lit gatherings teach him to listen deeply, not just to words, but to silences and gestures, a language of presence as vital as any scroll or seal. Outside, the soft rustle of olive trees sways gently, and distant night sounds the bark of a dog. The drip of water from stone spouts compose a quiet symphony of continuity. As the lamps flicker low and the courtyard settles into rest, Marcus feels a profound kinship growing, a sense that belonging here, despite the hardships, is no longer a distant hope, but a tangible, glowing reality. The fatigue on his limbs is softened by this warmth, a reminder that survival stretches beyond tasks accomplished. It lives in the human touch and the steady light that guides through darkness. In the glow of these flickering lamps, Marcus carries a newfound, quiet strength rooted in connection, sustained by shared endurance, and kindled by the fragile hope that together, even in an ancient world, they might endure. The carts rumble across uneven stones, their wheels rumbling like distant thunder. Marcus feels the vibration through the rough soles of his sandals as he moves swiftly through the crowd, clutching messages whose weight seems heavier with each step. This week, tension coils tight in Rome's busiest market, whispering of unrest barely contained. Rumors travel faster than official word. Grain supplies thinning, soldiers muttering on the fringes, talk of rebellion rising in the provinces, and sickness shadowing the city's poorer quarters. Marcus's role as a messenger trusted by senators becomes more perilous, his every delivery a thread in a fraying tapestry, every pause a potential spark. His modern experience triaging problems, managing priorities under pressure guides his decisions. But the unpredictability of ancient politics and human fears defies logic. He watches traders eye each other warily. Debates spill over like sudden storms, and even the laughter forced from weary lips carries an edge. The market, usually a place of exchange and survival, now hums with the electricity of impending crisis. The air hangs heavy, thick with the scent of smoke and dust, the taste of bitter olives lingering on Marcus's tongue. His mind races through strategies, route adjustments to avoid troubled sectors, discreet passes exchanged with trusted allies, coded signals in hurried handoffs. Yet every carefully measured step risks being overwhelmed by sudden upheaval. Outside the market's clamorous veins, distant drums echo a reminder of legions mobilizing along restless frontiers, the empire's borders tightening in tension. News arrives piecemeal, fragmented, stirring fears that ripple into daily life. Epidemics smolder in shadows, unspoken, but keenly felt beneath the city's feverish pulse. By twilight, the market's noise falls to a tense murmur, flickering lamps casting uncertain light over wary faces. Marcus's breath comes steady but heavy. The city's heartbeat quickens beneath his feet, relentless and unpredictable. He senses, keenly and painfully, that survival here demands more than swiftness. It requires endurance amid uncertainty, clarity amid chaos, and the courage to move forward through the trembling edges of a crisis gathering close. The sharp and the stale sweat of men pressed close together in heated conversation. Marcus feels the rough wood of the table beneath his palms, slick with spilled drink, as voices rise around him urgent, accusatory, fractured by anxiety. The warmth of flickering oil lamps does little to soften the tense atmosphere, where loyalty and suspicion clash louder than clattering goblets. This week, amid the revelry and unrest, Marcus witnesses how fragile peace shatters beneath sharp voices and hurried revelations. His role as messenger, once a conduit for careful, controlled exchanges, now places him at the center of unspooling tension. Secrets carried in his scrolls ignite sparks in these crowded rooms' whispers of betrayal. Rumors of plotting senators, veiled threats exchanged beneath garlands of laurel. His modern instincts balancing clarity with diplomacy, managing crisis with calmar, tested in this claustrophobic world of shifting alliances and grudges. The call centers steady scripts give way to improvisation. Every word he delivers becomes a potential tinderbox. He watches as trusted faces harden into accusation. Alliances fracture under pressure, and the line between friend and foe blurs in the flickering light. The tavern's pulse keeps time with the restless city rumors ripple through alleys. News from distant frontiers arrives fractured and urgent, and the palpable fear of epidemic shadows the laughter. Amid these chaotic currents, Marcus learns that survival hinges not only on speed, but on reading the unpredictable human heart. He feels the weight of responsibility settle like a stone in his chest. His knowledge could heal or harm. Every message carried is a choice that ripples farther than he can see. The reality of power here is raw and unforgiving, a reminder that information is never neutral, and peace is often only a moment's hold before the next storm. As the night deepens and the tavern quiets to nervous murmurs, Marcus lets the fatigue creep in, not just from exhaustion, but from the tremors of doubt. The ancient city demands more than swift feet and sharp mind. It demands resilience in the face of fracturing trust, and the courage to carry on even when the way forward is shadowed by fear and uncertainty. The child goes beneath his worn sandals, each step echoing in the compressed shadow of looming walls that seem to close ever tighter. The muted murmur of distant voices sharpens to urgent whispers, a subtle undercurrent of tension threading through the labyrinthine streets. This week, danger approaches unseen, its presence not announced by clashing swords or shouted warnings, but by the lengthening shadows cast by Rome's narrow alleys. Marcus, now steeped in the city's hidden rhythms, senses a quiet unrest vibrating beneath daily commerce and polite exchanges. His role as messenger to senators craving urgent news places him at the nexus of this growing unease, where information is both shield and weapon. His modern training, sharp reasoning, rapid assessment, and a methodical mind guides him as he charts routes that skirt known trouble spots, monitors patterns of suspicious activity, and deciphers coded messages that might hint at brewing conflict. Yet no map can fully capture the fragility of trust amid suspicion. No schedule can anticipate the sudden shifts in loyalties that pulse through shadows and whispered conversations. The scent of burning oil lamps mingles with faint hints of stew simmering in nearby hearths, grounding Marcus even as his thoughts swirl with the precarious balance of survival. Rumors of distant rebellions ripple through the city, and the threat of plague casts long shadows beyond the city gates, further darkening an already precarious horizon. Each heartbeat quickens with the knowledge that haste can be fatal, that a mistimed message or misplaced trust could ripple catastrophically through fragile networks. The soft echo of footsteps behind him tightens into a tangible weight, and Marcus feels the ever-present watchfulness of those who navigate these streets as both hunters and prey. As night deepens and the city's noises fold into muted breaths, Marcus carries the growing awareness that survival demands more than speed or logic. It requires a keen eye for the hidden currents swirling beneath stone and sky, a readiness to adapt swiftly, and above all, the courage to move steadily forward even when the path is veiled in uncertainty. The lives mounted on rough stone walls. The crackle of flame casts dancing shadows that stretch and contract with each tremor of light. Marcus feels the uneven chill of the flagstone beneath his bare feet, his fingers brushing a weathered tablet etched with hastily scrawled Mark's messages, whose weight presses as heavily as the incense smoke filling the air. This week, beneath the wavering torchlight, the sacrifices demanded by this ancient world become impossible to ignore. Each choice Marcus makes, each secret he carries, shapes more than destinies. It etches itself into the core of who he is becoming. His mind, trained for calm logic and clear communication, grapples with the murky ethics of survival among senators hungry for power and fearful of truth. The demands of loyalty and safety collide, pulling him between silence and disclosure. His past, the orderly call centers where problems were solved with scripts and protocols, feels distant and nearly irrelevant here, where decisions weigh on his conscience as heavily as on the fragile alliances they navigate. The harsh necessities of this world carve deep lines into his understanding of right and wrong. Outside, the city holds its breath. Rumors of revolts ripple through crowded streets. Whispers of epidemic chill the air, and the distant sounds of military drills echo faintly against temple walls. Within the chamber, torches sputter, shadows lengthen, and Marcus senses the fragile pulse of power and fear vibrating in every corner. His hands tremble slightly as he folds a sealed scroll, the rough texture grounding him amid swirling doubts. He knows every message he chooses to send or withhold can save or ruin, heal or harm. The modern clarity he once prized now blurs beneath the fog of human frailty and ambition. As the torches gutter and the incense smoke thickens, Marcus embraces the quiet weight pressing on his spirit, not as burden alone, but as the defining edge of survival. In this ancient interplay of light and shadow, he learns that the soul's true measure is shaped in sacrifice, fragile, painful, but profoundly human. The dust of stone mixed with the sharp tang of crushed herbs and the faint metallic scent of ink-stained fingers. He feels the faint vibration of footsteps echoing through the silent halls, a pulse that mirrors the quickening beat within his chest. There, on a cracked bronze mirror propped against a weathered wall, his fragmented reflection shimmers broken, incomplete, unfamiliar. This week marks a fracture in his identity, a moment of extinguishing and rebirth beneath Rome's indifferent gaze. Marcus, once anchored in the certainties of a modern life defined by digital clarity, now confronts the volatile flux of a world shaped by power, secrecy, and raw human will. His sense of self, once stable and distinct, splinters as the ancient city reshapes him in ways both subtle and profound. His call center expertise, strategic thinking, triage of urgency, clear communication proves a lifeline and an anchor. Yet here, these strengths dissolve awkwardly against the shifting tides of trust and betrayal. The roles he must play warp expectations, blending messenger, confidant, and cautious observer. The identities of past and present collide, and Marcus feels the weight of this collision reverberate in every interaction. Beyond the chamber's shadows, the city breathes with relentless life. Soldiers rally for distant campaigns. Markets surge with rumor and fear. And the threat of plague presses quietly into crowded quarters. Each message carried, each secret conveyed, weaves Marcus more deeply into a complex web where survival demands adaptation, but costs pieces of the self as dust settles again and the flickering lamplight softens. Marcus bends closer to the fractured mirror. The broken image holds no easy answers, but invites a new kind of seeing, a recognition that identity is not fixed, but forged in the fires of challenge and change. By week's end, fatigue hums beneath his skin, mingled with a faint resolve. The past self fades, but from its cracked fragments rises an emerging self reshaped, less certain, yet quietly enduring beneath the relentless march of Rome's ancient stones. The rough texture of weathered marble cold beneath his fingertips. Soft bird calls drift through the still air, mingling with the faint sound of distant footsteps waking to a new day. The city around him stirs quietly. Ancient dust swirls like whispered memories caught between shifting light and shadow. This week marks a transformation felt deep in bone and spirit. The ruins symbols of what once was, broken now, yet enduring mirror the changes unfolding within Marcus himself. He is no longer the stranger with a modern mind, dropped into an ancient maze, but is becoming part of a world shaped by resilience, adaptation, and layered history. The scars of collapse and rebuilding around him echo the fragility and strength intertwined in his own new life. Marcus's skills, careful reasoning, measured problem solving, managing flows of urgent information root him firmly in this place. Yet amid the ruins, he senses that survival demands more than logic. It requires humility before time's vast scope and the unpredictable currents of human will. Ancient stones bear witness to endless cycles of power rising and toppling, and he catches the lesson etched in their worn faces. Transformation is perpetual and often painful as the sun pushes shadows aside, warming cracked pavements and faded frescoes. Marcus moves with purpose. Messages delivered this week carry news of shifting alliances and distant battles ringing from the empire's edges. Each report whispers of uncertainty, of empires stretched thin, reminding him that the city's pulse beats in both triumph and tension. Epidemics lurk like dark clouds on the horizon, shaping lives unseen, but deeply felt in every cautious step. The ruins hold more than rubble. They hold stories of endurance, a reminder that rebuilding is slow work, requiring patience and trust. Marcus feels his old assumptions softening under Rome's unyielding gaze. Progress here isn't seamless, but forged in the interplay of collapse and renewal. As day breaks fully, and the city hums awake beyond these ancient stones, Marcus lets a deep breath rise within him, a breath shared with centuries past and futures unknown. Change is no longer a distant notion, but a lived reality. Survival is less a destination than an unfolding journey. And beneath Rome's vast sky, he begins to accept the weight and grace of transformation, and carving silent patterns against weathered columns. Morning light filters softly through leafy canopies, dappling the smooth surfaces with shifting shadows. Marcus traces the cool marble beneath his fingertips, feeling the delicate roughness where centuries have worn away perfection. A quiet reminder of time's gentle persistence. This week, amid the slow rhythms of Roman days, Marcus discovers that legacy is less about grand events than the quiet moments woven into daily life. His role as messenger, once a frantic race to deliver urgent words, now folds into these rhythms, grounded in steady presence and small acts of trust. The senators he serves rely not just on his speed, but on his patience, discretion, and the gentle weaving of human connections that survive beyond headlines and edicts. His modern skills logic, clear communication, managing flow find new expression here, tempered by an ancient awareness. Survival is a slow craft, shaped by endurance and empathy, as much as by quick decisions. He watches those vines climbing, slow yet relentless, carving into stone not by force, but persistence. So too, Marcus senses, must his impact be measured by the subtle strengthening of bonds rather than rapid dominance. Outside, distant voices rise faintly from the city's waking streets. Merchants calling, children playing, the clang of smiths at work. Reports of battles on northern frontiers ebb and flow, carried via fragile routes that Marcus helps map and mend. Rumors of epidemics lurk like shadows, but here, amid these shaded stones, hope clings to routine and connection. The vines and stones whisper of legacy shaped quietly, patiently, beneath shifting skies. Marcus feels the weight of this truth settling gently onto his shoulders. Fatigue from constant movement weighs on his limbs, but his heart stirs with a growing understanding that amid the grandeur and turmoil of empire, the threads that endure most deeply are composed of small, steady moments, shared meals, trusted hands, and the careful fracture of time. As sunlight strengthens, casting gold across mosaic floors, Marcus breathes in the soft promise of permanence beneath fleeting chaos. A legacy not merely of messages delivered, but of lives touched quietly and persistently beneath Rome's eternal sky. The scent of fresh earth and crushed herbs drifts through the air, mingling with the faint, smoky trace of oil lamps burning nearby. Marcus feels the delicate texture of worn parchment beneath his fingertips, the fragile script etched carefully over weeks, carrying news both mundane and crucial. Around him, birdsong flutters softly, offering a rare, soothing melody against the distant clatter of city life. This week, Marcus finds a deepening peace in these moments of shared knowledge, where the timeless act of reading and reflecting becomes refuge. His role as a messenger, once defined by urgency and relentless motion, now embraces the quieter rhythms of learning and connection. He sees how the transmission of information shapes not just decisions made in marble halls, but also the human ties that sustain a city forged in complexity and survival. His modern training logical assessment, prioritization, and clear communication guides him as he organizes scrolls and deciphers coded messages. Yet the tactile act of unfolding ancient texts and tracing faded letters teaches him patience and reverence for history's slow unfolding. The past whispers in every delicate fold, urging care and humility. Outside the sanctuary, Rome shifts beneath a sun climbing higher. News from the edges of the empire carries tales of unrest, military stirrings, and whispered fears of epidemics that darken lives unseen. Senators lean heavily on swift dispatches. Yet Marcus senses that true power lies also in the moments between the quiet understanding, cultivated in shared readings and whispered interpretations. As sunlight warms the stone and shadows retreat softly, Marcus breathes in the mingled scents and sounds, feeling the weight of both duty and discovery. The fatigue of relentless travel eases beneath the garden's gentle hush, replaced by a growing certainty. Survival is not only in swift delivery, but in the embrace of knowledge shared, understood, and carried forward. In the soft rustle of scrolls and leaves, Marcus uncovers a fragile but enduring strength of peace rooted in new knowledge, and the unspoken promise of continuity beneath Rome's eternal sky, and fresh water from the nearby fountain. It brushes against Marcus's skin, a gentle touch that cools the lingering heat of the day while stirring the heavy folds of his tunic. The faint rustle of leaves outside mingles with distant voices fading into evening calm. He stands quietly near a weathered stone ledge, feeling the cool texture beneath his fingertips and letting the steady rhythm of breath and breeze settle the restless clutter of the mind. This week, acceptance draws close like that warm breath, soft, persistent, and wrapping around the edges of a life once fractured by displacement and uncertainty. Marcus, once a man defined by urgent calls and swift solutions, now inhabits a slower rhythm shaped by the city's relentless demands and fragile human connections. His journey through Rome's busy streets and shadowed halls leads him here, to a moment where survival transforms into something more, into a quiet embrace of place and possibility. His modern, skills-efficient problem-solving, rapid data processing, and calm mediation remain vital, yet they are tempered by a growing humility. The unpredictability of ancient life, where news travels on foot and trust forms slowly, teaches him that control is an illusion. Instead, it is patience and acceptance that carve paths through chaos, shaping resilience in ways no algorithm could predict. Around him, the city exhales into evening vendors pack away stalls. Lanterns flicker alive beside heavy doors, and soft conversations drift through open windows. Reports of far-flung battles and whispered epidemics remain beyond immediate reach, but pulse faintly in the collective consciousness. Marcus senses that true strength lies not only in the messages delivered, but in the spaces between the moments of stillness and understanding that bind a fragile community. The breeze rises gently, ruffling loose scrolls on the ledge and catching strands of hair. Marcus lets himself feel the fullness of this calm, worn hands resting easy after days of ceaseless work. The weight of unrelenting duty eases, replaced by a strange, steady hope. In the quiet embrace of dusk and gentle wind, he begins to grasp that survival is less a battle and more a surrender to time, to place, and to the slow, sure building of belonging beneath Rome's vast, ancient sky, the stem of earth by generations of hurried feet, mingling with the distant murmur of vendors packing their stalls, and the soft rustle of linen against stone. A faint breeze carries the sharp scent of crushed herbs and warm earth from nearby gardens into the cooling air. Marcus feels the rough stones beneath his sandals solid, ancient, and grounding as he moves with deliberate purpose through Rome's waking streets beneath a pale dawn sky. This final week marks a profound turning point. The acceptance of a life reshaped, reborn amid the city's sprawling marvel and ceaseless demands. The man who once managed calls with clinical detachment now navigates a living tapestry woven from legacy, survival, and fragile trust. His feet trace paths both physical and emotional, each step carrying him deeper into the rhythms of an empire that pulses with both power and fragile humanity. His modern skills, logical reasoning, flow management, strategic prioritization have matured into tools of adaptation, guiding him through complex networks of senators, slaves, and soldiers. Yet, despite the efficiency and control he once prized, Marcus now understands that true mastery lies in embracing uncertainty, in balancing urgency with patience, and in finding strength through human connection. The city around him breathes and stirs, voices rise in marketplace negotiations. Children's laughter rings from courtyards, and in the distance, clang of blacksmiths and the footsteps of legionaries hint at forces far beyond. Reports of distant battles and whispered rumors of disease ripple through the fabric of the city's life, underscoring the fragile balance Marcus helps maintain. As dawn's light softens the sharp edges of stone and life begins anew, Marcus pauses, letting the cool air fill his lungs. The fatigue lingering in his muscles and mind is mingled now with a quiet resolve, readiness to move forward without the illusions of certainty, but with faith in resilience and renewal. In the quiet cadence of Roman footsteps and the gentle embrace of awakening light, Marcus accepts the profound truth that survival is a continuing journey of transformation. His life in this ancient city, once foreign and fractured, has been reborn not as an interruption, but as a vital thread in Rome's enduring story, traced poignantly on the timeless paths of cobbled streets.